Captain Eric Hayes stepped onto the cracked surface of Kriv 9 just as the twin suns sank below the horizon, casting long shadows across the red dust. He felt the chill of evening wind, sharp and dry, on his skin. Behind him, the exploration team deactivated their rovers and checked their equipment under the fading light. The planet was silent, broken only by the distant hum of the base camp generators. Eric raised his hand and signaled the drones to begin the scan. He had orders to investigate an ancient temple that appeared on the latest survey maps.
No one
Knew what lay inside, but reports hinted at strange energy readings. As Eric led the small team toward the temple ruins, he remembered the council's warning: this site is unstable. He had ignored it, driven by curiosity and duty. The ruined pillars rose ahead like broken teeth from some great beast. Vines of metallic lichen clung to the stone, glittering faintly in the dying light. Eric felt a tingle of excitement and caution. He pointed to a set of symbols carved into the archway. The markings were unlike any language he had seen. His heart quickened when his scanner detected movement just beyond the entrance. "Someone's in there," he said softly. His voice carried a mixture of surprise and tension. The team froze. Dr. Maya Lin checked the readings on her handheld. "Console. Life sign," she whispered. "Alien, and it's faint." Eric nodded. He raised his rifle, its barrel glowing with the safe energy pattern. They moved as one, stepping into the dark mouth of the temple corridor. The air inside was cooler, heavy with the scent of metal and dust. Every step echoed deep in the corridor. A figure darted from shadow to shadow. Eric signaled the drones to follow. Blue lights danced along the walls as the drones projected a grid pattern to map the path. Suddenly, the figure sprang forward, only to be caught in a shimmer of light. Eric pressed the trigger on the energy net launcher. The net snapped open and wrapped around the figure like a spider's silk. The capture was silent and swift. The drones buzzed softly as they recorded every movement. When the net retracted, it held a young alien girl. She was small, slender, and trembling. Her skin looked opalescent beneath the net's glow. She had large eyes, round and filled with fear. She pressed her palms against the net, trying to push it away, but Eric could see she was too weak. Breaths came in quick, shallow bursts. The energy net thrummed, but it did not harm her. Eric lowered his weapon and stepped forward, keeping a careful distance. "Easy," he said gently, though the girl did not understand his words. He placed the rifle on the ground and raised his hands to show he meant no harm. Light from his helmet lamp caught the tears in her eyes. She glanced at his faceplate, then back at the net, as if she could not decide which was more dangerous. Eric felt a pang of sympathy. He remembered how frightened he had felt when he first landed here. He knelt down to look at her more closely. Through the net's mesh, he could see her heart beating rapidly. Dr. Lin approached, carrying a small container of rations. She knelt beside Eric and set the food on a nearby stone. "She's hungry," Maya said softly. The girl's eyes flicked to the container, but she did not move. Instead, she stared at Eric with wide fear. She seemed convinced that he planned to devour her in the way her own legends spoke of strangers as monsters. Eric shrugged at Maya. "We need to gain her trust," he said. Maya nodded and tapped her translator drone, which hovered between them. The drone emitted gentle beeps and projected a soft voice. "We mean no harm. Please eat." The words were rough, but clear. The girl recoiled at the voice, her shoulders shaking. She opened her mouth as if to shout, but instead she made a strange rumbling sound. She pulled her knees to her chest. The net held her arms, so she could not escape. Eric watched her, patient. He wanted to prove he was not the devourer she feared. After a long moment, the girl's shoulders slumped. She reached out with trembling fingers and picked at a piece of ration bread. Eric held his breath. She sniffed it, then broke a small crumb off with her slender jaw. She tasted it. Her eyes widened in surprise. She chewed slowly, as if unsure whether the taste would harm her. Eric offered another crumb. She took it and ate it more boldly. Maya let out a quiet sigh of relief. Eric stood and restored some power to the net's hum to ensure it remained secure but harmless. He gestured toward the ruined temple, as if inviting the girl to follow. She looked at him, uncertain. Her gaze shifted back to the corridor beyond. Eric turned and walked a few steps in that direction. He paused, glanced back, and waited. After another tense moment, the girl rose to her feet, her limbs stiff. She walked toward him, one careful step at a time. The energy net released a small portion at the bottom, allowing her feet to move freely. She stepped out slowly, her eyes never leaving Eric's face. He nodded, encouraging. She extended an arm, and Eric offered his gloved hand. She hesitated, then placed her palm against it. The texture of his glove was rough and warm. She inhaled, then exhaled in a shudder. Eric squeezed her hand gently. The first bridge between them was formed. The sun had fully set by then, and the temple glowed with the pale light of moonrise. Eric called his team forward. They arranged portable lights and set up a secure camp around the entrance. Eric and Maya shared a look of triumph. They had captured more than a mysterious life form. They had captured a story, a secret this galaxy had never seen. The alien girl stood by Eric, watching him with wide, cautious eyes. She did not know what would come next. Eric watched the sky, thinking of all the questions she could answer. He felt both pride and deep responsibility. He knew their journey together had just begun, and that the galaxy would change because of what happened here tonight. The camp lay silent under the pale light of Krivnine's moons as Captain Eric Hayes settled beside a low generator hum. He watched the alien girl move slowly between the soft glow of the portable lamps. She still wore the energy net around her torso, its hum barely noticeable. Her opalescent skin seemed to catch the light, making her look almost fragile. Eric drew a quiet breath. He knew this night would shape their fate. Dr. Maya Lin crouched on the opposite side of the camp, adjusting the translator drone's volume. The little machine hovered near Sira's face, ready to capture every sound. Maya tapped her console. "We'll try again," she said softly. Sira nodded, her large eyes dark with caution. She clutched a piece of ration bread in one hand and held Eric's glove with the other. Eric spoke first. "Sira, can you tell us your name?" The translator drone recorded his voice, then emitted it in Sira's tongue. She stared at the drone, uncertain. Her lips parted and closed. At last, she spoke in a soft, musical tone. The drone captured the sounds and replayed them in broken English. "I am Sira." Eric smiled. It was a small victory, but one. That meant everything. Maya typed on her console, and the drone spoke again. "We are friends, Sira." Sira's eyes flickered. She put down the bread and placed both hands on the net's mesh. She pressed her forehead against it. Eric and Maya gave her space. After a long moment, Sira reached out and touched Maya's console screen. She traced a symbol that looked like a star. Maya tapped it. The drone spoke. "Homestar." Sira nodded. She closed her eyes and remembered. She described Krivnine as her place of exile. The warlord had driven her people from their worlds. Sira's family hid in these ruins, she said. She had escaped when the warlord's hunters arrived. She carried knowledge of a secret weapon that could end the warlord's threat. Eric and Maya exchanged glances. This was the truth they had hoped for. Eric rose and walked to the edge of the camp. He stared at the ruined temple. Vines of metallic lichen rustled in the wind. He thought of the galaxy beyond, colonies under threat, fleets on alert. Sira's knowledge was real, it could save thousands. He turned back to Sira. She watched him with wary eyes. Maya placed a hand on Eric's shoulder. "She will tell more if she trusts us," Maya said. Eric nodded and returned to Sira. He knelt beside her and said, "We will protect you." The drone carried his words. Sira's lips trembled. She rested her head on his knee. The gesture was small, but it spoke of trust. The team worked through the night. They upgraded Sira's net so it allowed more movement. Soon she could walk freely, but the net still prevented her from using her strange powers. Eric assigned 2 guards too. Watch the perimeter. He and Maya stayed close to Sira. They shared more rations. Eric gave her water from a canteen. She drank slowly, savoring the cool taste. Sarah used gestures to show her gratitude. She pointed to Eric's helmet and then to her own head. Eric tapped his helmet lamp. Light? He asked. Sira nodded eagerly. Eric switched on the lamp, and the bright beam revealed intricate carvings on the temple wall behind them. Sira placed her palm on the carvings. She closed her eyes. Her fingers traced patterns that matched symbols on her skin. Maya studied the marks. This is a map, she said. Eric leaned closer. The markings formed lines and circles like roads, and waypoints. Maya tapped her console. Shows tunnels beneath the temple, she concluded. Sira tapped her foot. She wanted them to follow. Eric felt excitement stir in his chest. Beneath the temple might lie the weapon Sira spoke of, but at that moment, a sharp alarm cut through the night. One of the perimeter sensors had detected movement. Eric's guards rushed to their posts. Eric stood and grabbed his rifle. Maya raised the drone. Sira's eyes widened with fear. She backed away, bumping into Eric from the edge of the camp. Eric saw figures emerging from the shadows, armed mercenaries with dark armor. They moved with purpose, weapons raised. Eric raised his hand. His team formed a tight circle around Sira. Eric called out, "Hold your fire until they get closer." The mercenaries advanced. Their leader stepped forward and shouted words in Sira's tongue. The translator drone caught snippets. "Hand her over, bring her alive." The mercenaries' demand was clear. They sought the knowledge Sira held. Eric's jaw tightened. He would not let them take her. "Prepare to defend," he ordered. His team readied their weapons. Maya's drone hovered above, scanning for energy signatures. Sira pressed against Eric's side. He bent down and whispered, "You're safe with us." Sira nodded and closed her eyes. The first mercenary lunged. From cover, Eric fired a stun bolt. It hit the mercenary's shield, short-circuiting it. The mercenary staggered back, dazed. Another mercenary charged. The energy net around Sira glowed and repelled him. Eric felt relief. The net was keeping. Her safe Maya activated the drone's holoprojectors. Shimmering decoys appeared around them, confusing the attackers. The mercenaries fired blindly. Eric and his team used the distraction to gain the upper hand. They moved swiftly, taking cover behind rocks and pillars. Sira watched the battle in awe. She felt the hum of the net and the energy of the weapons. She had never seen humans fight like this. She felt both fear and wonder. Eric noticed her gaze, pointed to her and gave a thumbs up. The drone relayed the gesture. "We fight for you." The mercenary leaders shouted orders. His troops regrouped. They used explosive grenades to flush out the humans. One grenade landed near Sira. Eric dove forward and shielded her with his body. The blast knocked them both to the ground. Eric felt pain in his shoulder, but he did not cry out. He pressed himself over Sira, covering her. When the smoke cleared, Eric sat up. Maya rushed to their side with medkit. Sira crawled beneath Eric's arm and pressed against him. Eric smiled through the pain. He signaled his team to push the mercenaries back. The humans advanced with calm precision. They took the attackers by surprise and forced them to retreat. The leader gave one last glare and called his troops back. They vanished into the temple's shadows. Eric watched them go, a cold resolve in his eyes. He straightened and offered his hand to Sira. She took it and helped him to his feet. Maya poured antiseptic on his wound, and Eric winced, but held still. Sira knelt beside him and pressed a gentle hand on his shoulder. The net sensors allowed her to heal minor cuts with her alien touch. Eric marveled as the small wound closed. Sira looked up, shy but proud. Eric put a hand on her head and said, "Thank you," the drone translated. The night sky above them was still. Eric helped Sira walk toward the temple entrance. He understood now that they were bound by more than duty. They had formed an alliance forged in trust and danger. Together, they would descend into the ancient tunnels. Together, they would awaken the power that could end the warlord's reign. Together, they would change the fate of the galaxy. Eric guided Sira through the narrow tunnel. the hum of the energy net still soft against her shoulders. The walls were carved with more symbols, circles, and lines that Sira traced with her fingertips. Her translation drone hovered close, interpreting her gentle hums into broken English. Eric listened as she spoke of hidden chambers filled with power, of a ship buried in stone. Maya followed behind, mapping the passage on her console. The ground shook slightly beneath their feet, as if the old temple answered their presence. They reached a larger cavern where shafts of moonlight pierced cracks in the ceiling. Dust motes danced in the pale beams. The center lay a massive hatch, its surface engraved with the same symbols. Sira pressed her hand to the metal, and a soft glow appeared along the lines. She stepped back and looked at Eric. He raised his rifle and tapped the hatch. It responded with a low click. Together, Sira and Eric pushed. The hatch swung open, revealing a starship buried in sediment and vines. The ship's hull was dented and dull. Its shape was unmistakable. It was human in design, though larger than any vessel Eric had seen. He felt awe and disbelief. Sira moved closer, her net humming. She removed a small device from her clothing, a crystalline key that pulsed with blue light. She placed it against the hatch's control panel. The device fit into a slot and sank in. Inside, the panel lit up, ancient circuits coming to life. Sparks flickered, and the hatch began to slide open further. Inside the ship, corridors stretched into darkness. Eric's helmet lamp lit the way. He entered a control room where consoles were frozen in time. Dust coated the surfaces. Maya knelt and ran her fingers over the controls. "These consoles use old human code," she said through the translator. Eric watched Sira place her hand on one console. The screen glowed beneath her touch. Symbols shifted, and the panel unlocked. She smiled softly, pleased that her alien technology could interface with human systems. They advanced into the engineering bay. Towering reactors sat silent, cables draped like vines. Sira pointed to a central column where a circular module was missing. She tapped her chest in alien tongue, and the drone translated, "Heart of Power." Eric realized they needed the reactor core, switched on his comm, and called for 2 techs from the camp. They arrived with crates of tools and power cells. Together, they fitted new conduits and replaced corroded parts. Sira hovered, guiding them with precise gestures. As they worked, Eric felt the ship's dormant life stir. A low hum grew, vibrating through the metal floor. Lights blinked on along the corridors. The air turned warmer. Maya checked the readouts. Reactor output was stable. She grinned. Sira placed her hand on the core module and whispered thanks. The core's glow pulsed in response. Eric watched the two of them, human and alien, working together to bring the past back to life. Once repairs were complete, Sira led them to the bridge. Seats were bolted around a central console with a sphere of light at its center. Maya tapped controls, and the sphere flickered. Sira touched the sphere, and it expanded into a holographic star map. Human colonies and alien worlds bloomed in blue light. Sira's eyes shone as she pointed to a distant system marked with a red icon. The drone translated, "Enemy stronghold." Eric nodded, understanding that this ship could take them there. The ship's reality-bending drive would let them slip through space in ways no other vessel could dot. Eric felt hope rise in his chest. He turned to Sarah. "We can end this war," he said softly. The drone spoke his words in her tongue. She placed a hand over her heart and bowed. He bowed in return. Maya tapped her console and began plotting a course. Outside the viewport, the twin suns of Kriv-9 rose, painting the temple ruins in gold light. The ship's engines thrummed, ready to carry them to battle. The galaxy awaited their arrival, and together, Eric and Sira would change its fate. Night fell around the restored starship as Eric and Sira prepared for their journey. The bridge glowed with soft lights, and Maya worked at the navigation console. Eric moved among the crew, checking weapons and supplies. The human team felt energy in the air. They believed in the power of the ancient ship and the alliance they had formed. Sarah stood beside Eric. She watched the holographic star map spinning slowly. Distant stars shimmered in the display. She traced a silver line. with her finger guiding Maya's adjustments. The path would take them through uncharted corridors of space. Eric placed a hand on her shoulder. The net around her pulsed in response, as if it felt his calm courage. "We leave in 10 minutes," he told her. Sira nodded and closed her eyes. She whispered words in her tongue. The drone translated, "I stand with you." Eric smiled. He turned to the tech crew. "Start the reality drive sequence," he ordered. They moved quickly, entering commands and monitoring gauges. The ship's hum grew stronger. Outside the viewport, the night sky of Krivnine shimmered. The temple ruins lay silent beneath the hull. Eric watched for a moment, remembering their first meeting here. Then he returned to Sarah. She looked at him with trust shining in her eyes. He offered her a ration bar. She accepted and ate slowly, savoring the taste. One of the guards approached. "Captain's sensors detect an incoming shuttle," he said. Eric frowned and turned to Maya. "Pull up the readout." Maya tapped the console, and a small hologram appeared, showing a fast ship approaching. Eric recognized the sleek design of the Warlord's patrol craft. "They found us early," he said. Sira's eyes widened. "They seek you," Eric told her. Sira nodded. She placed a hand on the net's control panel. The mesh tightened slightly, but it did not hurt her. Eric went to the weapon locker and loaded his rifle. 2 guards did the same. Maya readied a drone to scout outside. The shuttle drew closer. Through the viewports, Eric could see its engines glow faintly. He felt tension coil in his chest. Turned to Maya. "Prepare evasive maneuvers," he said. She nodded and began adjusting the flight plan. The shuttle docked without warning. Its airlock hissed open. Armed soldiers poured into the docking bay. Their dark armor gleamed under the lights. Eric and his team formed a defensive line. Sira stood beside him, her net humming in warning. The soldiers advanced with disciplined steps. The leader shouted orders. Eric raised his rifle. At his signal, the team opened fire with stun bolts. The beams crackled through the air. The soldiers raised shields, but the bolts overloaded them. Sparks flew from their armor. The battle was fierce but quick. Sira watched with wide eyes. She had never seen humans fight so fiercely for her. One soldier broke through the line and ran toward Sira. Eric fired and hit the ground at the soldier's feet. The blast sent him stumbling. Eric ducked and rolled, coming up beside Sira. He covered her with his body as more bolts flew. Maya's drone projected blinding lights, disorienting the attackers. Within minutes, the Warlord's troops lay stunned on the deck. Eric secured the captain's quarter. He cuffed the soldiers and ordered them detained. Sira helped Maya examine the fallen rifles. She recognized symbols on the weapons, the same markings as on the temple walls. Eric joined them. "These guards serve the Warlord directly," he said. Sira nodded and traced the symbol on a rifle. The drone translated, "Promise broken." Eric felt anger at the Warlord's betrayal. He turned to Sira. "We must strike his stronghold without delay." Sira placed a hand on his arm. The net glowed softly. Eric squeezed her hand. He walked back to the bridge. Maya had set the course. The ship's reality drive sequence was complete. Engineers reported all systems green. Eric took the captain's seat. He looked at Sira. "Ready?" he asked. She stood tall. "Ready," she replied through the drone. With a low roar, the ship slipped from Krivnine's orbit. The temple and the twin moons vanished. The corridor of folded space opened before them. Lights stretched into lines as stars blurred. Sira gripped Eric's arm with excitement and fear. Eric steadied her. The ship glided through the tunnel of light, leaving behind the world where they met. Ahead lay the Warlord's fortress, hidden in a nebula of black mist. Eric stared at the controls. He felt hope mingled with resolve. By dawn, they would stand before the Warlord's seat of power. Sira's knowledge and his courage would bring an end to the war. The galaxy would remember this night as the moment humans and aliens became allies. The victory was written in the stars. Eric felt the ship slow as it emerged from the reality fold near the Warlord's hidden fortress. The dark nebula framed tall spires and jagged walls that rose from a barren moon. Sira stood at the viewport, her large eyes filled with determination. Eric joined her, and they watched the silent array of sentry towers and patrol drones. He reached out and squeezed her hand. The net hummed softly in response, a reminder of their bond. Maya's voice came over the comm. "We have a drop zone." "Clear, Captain. The gravity field is stable." Eric nodded. He turned to the engineers. "Prepare the landing gear. Deploy us near the eastern wall." The crew moved with calm efficiency. Minutes later, the ship's engines closed to a whisper, and the hull touched the moon's surface with a gentle thud dot. Outside, the air was thin and cold. Eric led the team through a narrow canyon that ran along the fortress's base. Sira walked beside him, her net retracted enough to let her arms move. 2 guards brought up the rear, weapons ready. Maya carried the translator drone and a data pad. The path ahead curved around a rocky outcrop. Offering cover from the fortress's watchful eyes, Eric stopped and crouched behind a boulder. He signaled the team to hold. Using his helmet lamp, he scanned the walls. Patrol drones hovered above, scanning the ground with pale beams. Eric counted their circuits. 2 drones in a 10-second loop, he whispered. Maya adjusted the map. "On her pad? We can slip through when they turn away," she said. SIR and knelt, and placed a hand on the rock. She closed her eyes and listened. The wind carried the hum of distant generators. She tapped her chest and then pointed to the west. Eric studied her expression. She wanted them to follow the ridge instead of the canyon floor, trusted her instinct. They moved silently along the ridge. Small waves of dark energy pulsed from the fortress, but the ancient ship's shield had dampened Sira's connection to them. She felt weak, but determined. Eric reached out and gave her shoulder a steadying squeeze. She smiled, and the nets pulsed once, like a heartbeat. After 10 minutes, they reached a lower section of the fortress wall. Iva-like cables snaked down from the towers, feeding power into the walls. Eric pointed to a service hatch shaped like an angular door. It had no guards. Maya tapped her pad. "This door leads to maintenance tunnels," she said. Eric nodded and knelt beside it. He examined the panel. It used alien circuitry mixed with human alloys. Sarah removed her crystalline key and slid it into a narrow slot. The panel lit up, and the lock clicked. Eric pressed the hatch open. Inside, a dim corridor slanted downward. The air carried a faint chemical scent. Eric signaled the team to enter. They slipped inside one by one. The corridor walls glowed with thin veins of blue energy. Sira's net reacted, humming louder. She placed a hand on the wall. Symbols glowed under her touch, and a hidden door slid open ahead. Eric held his rifle high and motioned forward. Maya led the way, her drones scanning for traps. In the tunnel, they passed rows of storage containers and power conduits. Maya checked her pad against each label. "This section leads to the reactor core control room," she said. Sira stepped forward and traced the symbols by memory. She had seen similar carvings at the temple. Eric whispered, "Good work, Sira." They reached a large chamber where a cylindrical core pulsed with energy. Guards in dark uniforms patrolled the perimeter. Eric counted 4 soldiers, each armed with energy carbines. He crouched behind a conduit and signaled the team. 2 guards faced the entrance, 2 faced the core. Sira listened and tapped her chest. She whispered, and the drone translated, "I can disable the core from here." If Sira's alien power interacted with the core, it could shut the fortress down. He whispered the plan. Sira would approach the core while he and the team covered her. They nodded. Eric counted down. 3, 2, 1. Sira stepped from cover and moved toward the core. As she neared, the energy veins on the walls brightened. She placed both hands on the core. The room's hum rose to a roar. Sparks flew from the conduits. The guards looked up in shock. Eric and his team opened fire. Stun bolts ricocheted off the walls. The guards returned fire, but Eric and the others took cover behind support beams. Maya deployed a holodecoy, projecting Eric's silhouette near the entrance. The guards concentrated on the decoy. Sira focused. On the core, her net humming, she closed her eyes, channeling her power. The core's glow shifted from blue to pale amber. With a final pulse, the core went silent. The energy veins on the walls dimmed and faded. The guards' weapons powered down and clattered to the floor. The colony-wide defenses would soon fall. Eric lowered his rifle and ran to Sira's side. She collapsed to her knees, breathing heavily. Eric knelt beside her. "Are you okay?" he asked. Sira nodded and smiled weakly. Maya checked the consoles. "The fortress shields are offline," she announced. Outside, they could hear alarms as patrol drones crashed to the ground. Eric helped Sira to her feet. Her net glowed softly, protecting her from stray power surges. "We did it," Sira whispered. Eric hugged her quickly. He felt her strength. Return, they moved back into the tunnel, leaving the stunned guards behind. Eric signaled the team. "Let's get back to the ship and call the fleet." They retraced their steps, careful and swift. As they emerged from the maintenance hatch, the fortress above them trembled. Turrets lowered and doors opened. The warlord's troops poured into the courtyard. Eric watched as the fortress's main gate collapsed inward. His ship's fleet arrived in orbit, small fighters slipping through the dead shields. The sky filled with laser beams. Explosions shook the moon's surface. Eric and Sira stood side by side, watching humanity's fleet strike the fortress from above. Eric felt hope and relief. Sira leaned against him. The battle they had started in the tunnels now raged in the skies. "We saved your people," Eric said softly. Sira rested her head on his shoulder. The net's hum grew steady and calm. Eric held her close as the final blasts shattered the remaining walls. The fortress fell silent under the twin suns of dawn. Together, they watched the sun rise over the warlord's moon. Eric knew this victory was not just a battle won, but a new alliance forged. The galaxy would remember this day when an alien girl and a human captain stood together to bring peace. And in that moment, they both understood that trust and courage were the greatest weapons of all. The sky above the barren moon was calm as Eric and Sira stood on the shore of a dark crater lake. The fortress lay in ruins behind them, its walls crumbled and silent. Tiny embers drifted from the smoking remains of war engines. Eric watched. As the human fleet gathered in orbit, ships glinting against the blackness of space, he felt the weight of what they had done. They had toppled a warlord and freed a people. Beside him, Sira pressed a small device against her chest and closed her eyes. Eric placed a hand on her shoulder, remembered the fear in her eyes when she first met him in the temple. Now she stood tall, her net removed and folded beside her. The energy key she carried had unlocked more than a starship. It had unlocked hope. Sira opened her eyes and offered Eric a faint smile. She spoke in her soft tongue, and the translator, Drone, replied, "We will rebuild." Eric nodded, his heart swelling with pride. The human team joined them at the lake's edge. Maya approached, her console in hand. She announced that the warlord had been captured and was secure in a holding cell aboard the warship. Councils of human and alien leaders would meet soon to discuss peace treaties. Eric felt relief wash over him. The galaxy that had trembled beneath the warlord's boots would now find stability and unity. Surfed forward and touched the surface of the lake. The water rippled gently, reflecting the pale twin suns. She whispered words of gratitude in her native language. Translator Drone echoed, "Thank you for your courage and trust." Eric watched her, moved by her grace. He knew that this moment would be taught in schools, the day humans and aliens fought together for justice, as they returned to the starship. Sira's people emerged from hidden caves, families reunited in tears and laughter. Children ran toward Sira with outstretched arms. She dropped to her knees and let them climb onto her. Eric watched from a distance, his eyes soft. Maya joined him and said, "You gave them a future." Eric looked at the joyous crowd and nodded. "We did it together." On the restored bridge of the starship, Eric convened a meeting. Representatives from human colonies and Sira's people stood around the holographic star map. Sira placed her hand on the map, tracing the routes of refugees returning home. Eric spoke of joint patrols to protect weak worlds. Maya proposed sharing technology to rebuild shattered cities. The leaders listened and agreed. Treaties were drafted. Before the ship even left the moon's orbit, later, Eric and Sierra walked down the ship's main corridor. A gentle hum filled the air. Sierra leaned against the railing and looked out at the stars. "I was alone once," she said softly. Eric stopped beside her. "You are not alone now," he replied. She smiled and leaned her head on his shoulder. The net's residual hum had faded, but their bond remained strong. In the ship's mess hall, humans and aliens shared a meal. Simple bread, cooked vegetables, and water from the moon's spring. Sierra offered alien fruits that glowed with inner light. Humans tasted them and laughed at their sweetness. Children ran between tables asking for more.
Eric sat
At the head of one long table and raised his cup. To friendship and peace, he toasted. Glasses clinked and cheers rang out. Sierra raised her own cup, her eyes bright as the ship prepared to depart. Eric took Sierra to the hangar bay. Smaller vessels waited, painted with human and alien symbols. Engineers waved as they prepared final checks. Sierra placed her hand on one of the crafts. She felt the power of human engines and her own alien circuits in harmony. Eric watched her, certain that their alliance would endure beyond this mission. When the last engines roared to life, the starship lifted from the moon's surface. Below, the refugees waved, their faces hopeful. Sierra stood beside Eric on the bridge. She looked at the rising sun over the crater lake. "We will follow the stars," she said. Eric nodded. "We will chart new paths together." The ship slipped into space, carrying the promise of a new era for both species. And so, as they sailed toward distant galaxies, Eric and Sarah stood united at the helm. Their story would become legend. A human captain who trapped a mysterious alien girl, and an alien girl who taught humans the meaning of trust. Together, they turned fear into friendship, darkness into light, and war into peace. The galaxy would never be the same.